Go. Hello, everyone. My name is Colin Evans, and I'm the Community Services Librarian from Lakeland Library Region. Today, we are honored to have author Marion Mutala with us as part of the Saskatchewan Writers Guild Author Reading Program. Marion has a master's degree in educational administration and has taught for 30 years. She has a great passion for the arts and loves to write, sing, and play pickleball. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we're excited to hear more about your experiences as an author.
Well, thank you, Colin, and thank you for having me, and thanks to the Saskatchewan Writers Guild for sponsoring this event. So we're going to talk about thinking, writing, creating, and when we do that, think about what is your story and what's your family story, because they often will say you should always write about what you know, and that's what I've done. And so I've written a new series, 4 books in one, Baba's Babushka, Magical Ukrainian Adventures, and it has my Christmas, my Easter, my wedding story, plus a new one with the going back to Ukraine. It was published by Your Nicholas Worth 10 years ago. And I also have another one in that series called Kohkum's Babushka too, by Gabriel Dumont. So I have 5 books total in that series. And I have 3 beautiful authors. Wendy Siemens did the Christmas and the Easter one. Amber Reese did the wedding, and Ola Tichenko did the Ukrainian one. And Donna Lee Dumont did Kohkum's. So those are, if you notice, it started 10 years ago, and now we've had that compilation of my stories into one 2020. So what I'm going to talk about today is the collection of stories, the idea, how I came up with my ideas for my stories, pictures of my family, talk a little bit about Ukraine because I'm half Ukrainian, and about the creative writing process, talk a little bit about Christmas Eve, book reading and illustration, and then my books have now become tools of peace, which I think is an important message, because if I teach you about my culture and I learn about your culture, then we make the world a better place. So my first book, as I said, was Baba's Babushka, Magical Ukrainian Christmas. And in 2009, I had the wonderful opportunity to go with my 3 sisters back to Ukraine. And we saw where our ancestors came from. And this is what the book looks like on the cover, at the front and the back. And you'll notice on the cover, there's a picture of a little girl, Natalia, who's actually me in the story. And my Baba is my mom. My mom was Sophie Doyle. She came from Hafford, and that's why my story takes place in Hafford. And I took pictures with her babushka on. So that's her actual babushka. And this is the farmhouse where they used to live. And so the illustrations are based on my family, which I think is important, a love of family and my Ukrainian heritage and traditions. And there's another picture, the inside cover, Baba's Babushka, a Magical Ukrainian Christmas. So why am I talking about my family? Well, I believe that we should all treasure our heritage. Your roots and past make you who you are today. You act a certain way because of who you are. And I also feel it's important when you're telling your stories to find your own voice. You know, they talk about writing and finding and developing your own style. For example, your voice is unique, just like your fingerprint. And so when you do your writing, it's unique too. You have a certain style, a certain way of flair with words. So when you do your writing, make sure you try and find your own voice. It's good to learn from the experts, but then in the end, you have to find your own writing style. And I also believe every person is important and has a beautiful story to tell. So find out what your story is, write it, and develop it and share it with the world. And maybe you'll do that through drama or music, dance, visual arts. Some people are good at drawing. You can do your pictures and make lots of beautiful pictures. You can do it through literature, sports, work. Find out what you're good at and share your beautiful talent with the world. We'd have a different world, wouldn't we? So this is the inspiration. Inspiration can come from anywhere. My mom had these 2 pictures of my grandparents on our wall. They were in those round frames from the olden days. And this is my Dido, Stefan Dubek, I didn't know him. He died before I was born. I come from a big family. There's 10 of us. I'm number 9 out of 10. And then my baba, Tessie Wozniakowski, she died when I was only 4 years old. So I don't really remember her. But they came from Western Ukraine. And imagine the journey they must have had. And I was always inspired by people's courage. It's not like today when you travel, you know a lot about the country before you go, but this was in 1911 and 12 where they got on a boat and they were part of the first wave of immigration to Canada. There were 5 waves of immigration to Canada, and the largest one was in 1911 to 12 or in that area. And they were married in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and they're actually buried in Hafford Cemetery. And that's where my mom grew up. And so that's why my stories take place in Hafford. And what do you notice about my baba? She's wearing a babushka. That was another inspiration for my story. I had a problem. When you write, you often will have a problem and you have to solve it. And my problem was, I had this little girl, Natalia, in the story, and I needed to get her back to Ukraine to meet her baba. And so I came up with the idea of using the babushka, which is a very important thing in Ukrainian culture. And many cultures, they wear a headscarf of some sort with a babushka in it or some kind of headscarf. They've been around forever. This is the graveyard. We got the headstone rebuilt of our ancestors. And we went there. There was 50 of us, and we celebrated our family, our roots, our cousin Dubek. So there, if you go to the Hafford Cemetery, you will see the graveyard of my grandparents. And this is the other side. So we put their ancestors. So the reason I'm here is because of Sophie. My mom was Sophie Dubek. She lived from 1918 to 2007. She is the baba in the story, as I said, with the babushka on. And these are the Dubek's children. There was 7 of them all together. And they were a very musical family. So I thank them for that because of their musical expertise. I have that gift too. And there's their band. So this is my mom's, Sophie's brothers and sisters. So starting here with Auntie Anne, and they're all passed on now. So this is another reason why I wrote, if I don't document these stories, they'll be lost. So they're from Hafford, and this is my mom's sister, Anne Novakowski. She played the accordion. My uncle Pete, he lived in Hafford, and he played the violin. Uncle Bill, he lived in Hafford too, and he played the drums, and he also played the saxophone and the banjo. Uncle Nick, he lived, he was born in Hafford now, but then after he moved to Hanley-Keniston area where I grew up, and he lived about a quarter mile from where we grew up on the farm. So the map I'm using is showing Lviv right here, and that's Western Ukraine, and that they came from a small village, Presipa and Zubkova near there. We went there in 2009, saw our ancestors and saw where they came from and met relatives we had not met before. And if you see the country Slovakia, it used to be Czechoslovakia. My dad came to Canada and he's from Slovakia. So you see it's very close to Western Ukraine or Lviv. And so that area, they had a lot of similarities. My dad did, August Mutala. Here it is again, Western Ukraine. And a lot of the first immigration from Ukraine to Canada came from Western Ukraine. They were farmers. Ukraine's flag is a combination of the blue for the sky and yellow for the wheat. Well, how similar is that to Saskatchewan? You know, Ukraine was known as the breadbasket of Europe, and Saskatchewan too has become the breadbasket of the world in many times. They're growing other things now, but in those days, they grew a lot of wheat. Very similar to Saskatchewan. The national flower of Ukraine is the sunflower, and I said you can't get away from your roots. I still love sunflowers, but I had a room in my house that was full of sunflower stuff. And now I know why. National flower of Ukraine is sunflower. This is the Cyrillic alphabet. It was formed in 1998, and there's 33 letters, and they all have different sounds. And if you go to Hafford, you will see the street signs are written in the Cyrillic alphabet. So I kind of think Halford, Saskatchewan is kind of the sort of a suburb of Ukrainian culture there with the Cyrillic alphabet and their signs and that. There's my mom. So that picture I showed you, well, this is the babushka. I took a picture with her babushka on. That's the actual babushka we have. All my stories have babushkas that match in the color, and the blue one is the one with the red flowers for Christmas. And there she is, Sophie Doyle. And it looks a lot like her. Wendy did a wonderful job of painting the illustrations to make them look like my family. Another picture of my mom with her babushka on, and you'll see. Unfortunately, she did not live to see the book in its entirety, but she knew I was writing it. So why am I putting a wedding picture here? Well, again, the inspiration, I needed people in my story. So this is my sister, Angie. I told you I have 6 sisters and 3 brothers, and I'm number 9 out of 10. So when Angie got married, I was her flower girl. This is me, and I'm the little girl in the story, Natalia. This is my cousin Mary and my sister Evelyn, and both of them are passed on. And there's a beautiful picture that Wendy made with my mom and me as I aged as a little girl for the story. And my dad was the Dido, or the grandfather in the story, and with his 2 grandchildren, my son Simrat and his nephew. They were born 10 days apart, Brian. And if you see it later in the pictures in my books, you'll see, again, Wendy did a wonderful job of painting a picture of my dad. And so I had another dilemma. So as you're writing again, you often will come up with dilemmas. I did not have a picture of my grandmother as a little girl, so I had to recreate a picture of her. And so Olivia is my great niece, and she's the Baba as a little girl. So in my story, Natalia goes back to Ukraine and meets her Baba as a little girl, and I needed to create a little girl, so I used Olivia's picture, and we put her with brown hair so we don't get them mixed up. And there's Denise is the mom, and Daryl is her brother, and those are Angie's, the one that was getting married. Those are her children, and they're in the story. You'll see in the illustrations in my Christmas book, they're in the story. Okay, so we talk about the brain. The brain, I believe, is a muscle, and the more you use it, the more ideas will flow. So use your brain. So a lot of people talk about writer's block. I've never had that experience of writer's block. As a matter of fact, it seems like the more I write, the more ideas come up to me. So if you keep developing and writing and write every day, there's a lot of people that get up in the morning and they set a time and write. For myself, as soon as I get inspiration, I used to keep a notepad by my bed and write down the idea. Now, if I can't sleep or if I have an idea, I get up and open a document on the computer, write it down and keep it there and develop it later on. You don't have to develop it right away. You just write your ideas down and don't worry about editing or spelling later. You can do that later. And think about writing as an art. You get to play with words. How fun is that? I love words. I love when I read a book and you find a new word or something that really is fanciful or creative. So be creative when you write. Have fun and use your imagination. I write some people are limited to writing just children's books or poetry. I write all kinds of stuff. And like I said, inspiration can come from anywhere. I believe words are powerful, so be careful how you use your words too. Nowadays, you have to be careful how you create your stories, but words can create all kinds of feelings, emotion, good ones, bad ones, ugly ones, but they are powerful, and it's a huge way of getting your message out, your voice, sharing, a wonderful tool. So I'm going to use an example from my book, More Babas, Please. How I came up with this idea is the Ukrainians always have, at the churches, they always have bake sales in the spring and Advent and Lent, different seasons of the year. And one day I was there and I just realized they make breads, kolache, all kinds of jams and everything, that when they're gone, who's going to be doing this? And so it inspired me to create, because we need more babas in the world, grandmothers, grandmère, different ways of calling grandmother. How do you call your grandmother? Well, in Ukrainian, you say baba. In French, you say grandmère. In Cree, they say Kohkum. So if you see, it's also a book that celebrates all grandmothers from all different cultures. And what it says on the back, it says, babas are the best. The love of a grandmother is something special, whether she makes favorite meals, sings songs, plays games, or simply cuddles her grandchildren on her lap. She is always sharing her love. The importance of extended family, is so important. And often the women are central to a lot of the cultural things that happen in our lives. And so this is so important to recognize and honor babas and grandmothers. So think about, what are other names for baba? What did you or do call your grandmother? And what are some other cultural names for grandmothers? And in my book, I have this Wordle or word cloud, and you'll see right in the inside of my cover of my book, all the different ways of calling grandmother, Zaida, Nana, Pog. These are all researched and actual ways of saying grandmother in different cultures. Kohkum is there, Lola. And the other thing we're going to talk about is the babushka, because as I said, I have a babushka, and I have this one here I'm going to hold up for you to see. And I had that problem where Natalia had to get back to Ukraine. So in my first book, in the Christmas book, Natalia was out playing in the snow, and a beautiful babushka like this, if you can see it, lands on her head like this, swoops her up and takes her back to Ukraine, and she meets her baba as a little girl, and her baba teaches her all the Ukrainian Christmas Eve traditions, which are true Sviat Večer. So even though there's no flying or magic babushkas, I call these magic babushkas, but my books are kind of historical fiction because they're based on the truth and the true traditions to Ukrainian people around Christmas Eve, which are meatless dishes, 12 dishes, kucha, which is the wheat that you have at the first meal. And all those are documented in my book. And I want to just remind you that if you are doing things that are historical fiction, make sure you do your research and they're true. Use references and find at least 3 or 4 references that will say the same thing to make sure that you document things that are true. And I wanted you to think about other cultures that wear a babushka or other types of garments similar to the babushka. For example, that's what came up with my book for Kohkum's babushka. Do you notice all the indigenous women wore babushkas? I wondered why that was. And so that's why I came up with Kohkum's Babushka, a magical Ukrainian Metis tale. And in that story, it talks about the similarities between our cultures, where babushkas, embroidery, the fiddle is so important. So different things like that. But again, I want to caution you, make sure you document and do research if you're going to do historical books. There's the babushka for my wedding book. So I have a different color representing the seasons. There's 4 seasons, and this was the fall one, and it's a fall color. Okay, so here's your little writing exercise. So if you want to get your pencils out or pens or however you're going to do this, more babas, please. Start with what you know. So you could just put in more whatever, please. More cats, please. More dogs, please. Whatever you want to come up with. This is just a little brain teaser, a little exercise to get you writing. And it's a simple exercise. But in this book, my other books aren't rhyming, but my More Babas Please actually has a rhyming pattern, AABB, which means the first 2 lines go together, the second 2 lines rhyme together too. So this is how my story goes. Big ones, small ones, fat ones, tall, curly-haired, straight-haired, wig-wearing, bald. A rainbow of colors and shapes and size, fun and kind and loving and wise. More Babas, please. So you can use this rhyming pattern as you see AA, BB to write if you choose, or you can just write without a pattern and create your own pattern. And if you're focusing on grandmother, what do you like to do with your grandmother? Or how does she help you? Or why are grandmothers important? Or why are mothers important? Or why are grandfathers important? I wrote a book, more Ditos too. So, and other names. So if you want to focus on people in your life, maybe aunties or uncles, or you could talk about animals or whatever you like. You just have to think about something, write, and create. And this is just a simple exercise to get you going. So if you're talking about your roots now, family stories, where were you born? Your life story of your ancestors. Maybe you're going to write a memoir about your life story. Your parents on your mother's side, your father's side, your grandparents on your mother's side, your grandmother, grandfather, grandpa, parents, father's side. Think about where you came from, because as I said before, treasure who your ancestors are. You are the way you are. You act the way you are. A lot of the genetics, you know, they say you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your relatives, right? We have similar genetics. We look like I look like my dad. You know, you can't get away from that. They're part of who you are. So celebrate the good stuff. Okay, so there's some other ideas for writing. Think about why. Think about peace. As I said, peace is an important issue with me. I wrote a little book called Grateful. What are you grateful for? Or because. Or you just start with yesterday was the worst day of my life. You can write short stories, raps, songs, novels, or just write through pictures and then tell a story. Doesn't matter how you write, play with your words again, think, write, create. My life as an author, in 10 years since I've been retired, as a teacher, I've written 15 books. And I always feel if you want to change your life, write a book. Join a writers group. Saskatchewan Writers Group they send out e-briefs every week. And in there's workshops you can attend to. There are other like-minded people you can meet and talk about writing. They can help you. You can get editors. There are so many information out there. If you just Google it, you'll find all kinds of help for writing. You don't have to do this alone. There are so many things. And in that e-briefs, they often will have places where you can submit poetry or stories or all kinds of stuff. So, you know, to send out your work. So as a writer, you have to decide what kind of writer you want to be. Do you just want to write for therapy, just for healing? You can do that. Or you could submit it to contests, or maybe just writing it for your family to know your family history. There are lots of writers in Saskatchewan. Surprisingly, lots of writers, and there's lots of literary festivals. We have a huge literary community here, which you don't even know about, but when you start exploring, you will find it's a beautiful place, and people often help you. As a matter of fact, if you need help, you can always contact me. Okay, so when I write, I wrote a song called the Baba Song based on my book, More Babas, Please. And I'm going to sing that for you right now. And in the song, I teach some Ukrainian words and to teach about the Ukrainian culture again, too. And Vereniki, you know, they did a survey. And what do you think is the most favorite food in Canada? Well, there's lots of favorite foods, but I guess number one was Vereniki or pierogies, you might know them as, or my mom called them padaha. And there's so many different kinds of dumplings, and I can see why, you know, in many cultures they have some kind of dumpling, why they're so good and favorite food. So I'm just going to grab my guitar and I'm going to sing you this song. And again, I wrote this song based on my book. So their inspiration again can come from anywhere. And it goes like this. Baba makes vareniki, she makes them all the time. And when we go to eat them, this is what she says. Ye stay, ye stay, ye stay, they are so very good. Ye stay, ye stay, ye stay, yum, yum. Verse 2, here it is. Baba wears a babushka, she wears it everywhere. She is Ukrainian, and this is what she says. Duzha, duzha, dobra, I look so very nice. Duzha, duzha, dobra, queen of the land, which means very, very good. Baba is my grandma, I love her very much. And when I go to see her, this is what she says. Vitayamo and Yaku, you are my kapusta. Vitayamo and Yaku, E-I-E-I-O. And Vitayamo means welcome, and Yaku means thank you. And kapusta, well, cabbage, soured cabbage. Baba loves to sing and dance, she does it every day. She plays the accordion, and this is what she says. Oola, 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 la. Oola, 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 la. Verse 5, so if you have a Baba and a Jito too, you are so very lucky, and this is what you'll say. No, Hialita, God's blessing to you. No, Hialita, God's blessing to you. There you go. There's my little song about Baba. And you notice in it, I'll just put my guitar down, that I'm teaching again about Ukrainian culture and different words. Ye stay, how to eat, and things that are true in there. Now, you don't have to always do true things. You can make fun things, whatever you choose to do. But someone said to me, oh, I'm Irish. Why don't you write some books about the Irish? And I said, well, I'd love to, but I've written 15 books in 10 years. I'm a little busy. But I suggested to them, if they're Irish, you should write about your culture, because it's your culture, you know it better than me. So there's an idea for you. Start writing about your culture, whatever it happens to be, German or French. I'm sure there's a market for those kinds of books. So here's the question: how to become a good writer? What do you think you need to do? Well, practice, 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 practice. So that means you have to write. And a lot of people write every day. And there are times where I write every day. Right now, I'm just finished up some books, so I'm not writing every day at this time. But in order to write 15 books in 10 years, I've been writing a lot. And what do you practice? Well, reading. If you read a lot, you get ideas of how words go, the flavors of word. Again, finding your own voice, but it is so important to read. It is so important to write and to speak. And then once you've done all your work, then share it. Find someone that's a good person, not necessarily a friend in the sense that, because friends don't always want to give critical feedback, and they don't have to be critical in the sense that it's bad feedback, but you should have somebody that will help you improve your writing, because we all need help with my writing. You know, I hire professional editors, and you can Google professional editors out there, and you pay them and they will give you help with your writing. And it's important if you're going to produce something and market it, because marketing is another whole dimension of writing, which I'm not going to really talk about today. I could do a whole workshop on that. But, you know, you have to be proud of what you put out there, right? If you're going to do a book. So you don't want to have any spelling mistakes, and you need to have it the best product that you can if you're going to sell it. So therefore, you need to either join a writers group or find people. You could start your own writers group and do this all the time if you want to become a writer. And again, how do you start? Well, brainstorm. All ideas are good. I always just write down. If I have an idea, I write it down, save it on the file, call it something on the computer and save it. And rough copies are great. Just write. Don't worry about your spelling. As I said before, you can edit that after, but get your facts down or your points down or your story down. And again, make sure you research all facts, make sure they're accurate, and check multiple sources to make sure that they both say the same thing. Because if people disagree on a fact, then maybe it's not a true fact. You have to always be careful because anyone can put a website up there. Ask for help. Don't be ashamed to ask for help, and from experts. I did. And then once you have your work, share, rewrite. How many editings do you do till you get it right? You know, you just have to edit and edit. And I always try to improve my writing. And I'm not, if people give me feedback, I'm open to that idea because I want it to be the best that I can. Are you curious? I'm very curious. I've always loved historical fiction. I still love historical fiction. I told you my grandparents' pictures, I didn't really know them, but I always wonder what their life was like. And I wrote a story called Bubba's Trunk about that. They had to come with one trunk. What would you put in that trunk? You can come with one trunk and you're never, when you leave, it's a one-way ticket. You're never going back because they never had money in those days to go back. And what would you take with you? And what would the journey be like? You know, they went from horse and buggy to a train, and from the train they got on a boat, and often they slept with the animals. I did my research and they slept in the boat with the animals, and amazingly they survived. So what was the life like for the early pioneers? And I started my first book, I said, in the year 2000, and I worked on it for 10 years before I even sent it out there. And when I researched it, I sent it to your Nicholsworth in Regina, Heather Nichol, lovely person. You can Google her. And she said, you have enough for 5 books, Marion. So that's why I took them apart. And we have the Christmas, Bubba's Babushka, Magical Ukrainian Christmas, Easter, Wedding, and then going back to Ukraine. And then, of course, Kohkums. And I have more coming. I have a short story book that I'm working on, has about 30 short stories, and another poetry book called Race to Finish. And then I'm going to do a cookbook too, Bubba's, Sophie's Magical Ukrainian Cookbook. Those are some projects I'm working on. So why is it important to write? Why do we want to write? Well, for me, when I'm telling the story of my existence, of my family's existence, and about my culture, and I'm sharing that with society. Historical fiction documents are important. And people have a fascination with the way things were in the past, in the present, and the future. I also have documented the traditions that are true. As I said, I was not an expert, but I asked experts about all the Christmas and the Easter and the wedding traditions, and they're not lost now. They're documented in these books. And also to teach others about your traditions, your culture's roots. And again, I said that's an important message for me, promoting peace. I sign all my books, Peace, Marion Mutala, because I really believe it's important that we need to promote peace. What a different world we'd have if everybody tried to promote peace. For fun, inspiration, enjoyment, and I love reading. I've always loved reading. And you know, the interesting thing about these books, not all my books are children's books, but these books are you know, meant for children's book. But the adults love my books as much as my children. And I think that's why, because I have that creative historical fiction component in there, which is true. So where do my ideas come from? Well, I wrote my whole life. I got my guitar at age 10 and wrote many songs and poems for many years on scraps of paper, journals. I read a lot. I wanted to be a journalist, but in those days, we didn't have the option. I had to go to Winnipeg, and I grew up in Hanley, Kenniston, and we didn't have the money to go away to Winnipeg. So I came to Saskatoon and I became a teacher, and I had a beautiful career, 30 years as a teacher. And this is another way. The good thing about writing is as you age, you sometimes get better at it. And you know, you don't have to worry about, like an athlete, they develop their career and probably by the time they're 30, some of them are finished. But for a writer, you can write your whole way. There's people in there's 80. I met a lady in her 80s and she was writing a trilogy. She started a trilogy at the age of 80. That means 3 books. So you can write always, always write. You can write just for healing and therapy. You don't even have to publish it, just for yourself. It's a wonderful tool. So this is my inspiration. My challenge is tell your story in some fashion, however way that you choose. Develop your talents and gifts. Why are we here as people? Well, I believe that everyone has a gift or a talent, and we need to develop it and share it with the world. And it would inspire others and make the world a better place. It'll create understanding and teach others. And again, my books have become tools to share a message of peace, education, culture, and respects for others. You know, before COVID, I was going into schools and doing many schools and different places, book readings. Now I can't. I had to learn a new technology again, but we can still share our message, however way we choose to do that. Imagine a world where people invested time to develop talents, share our gifts and talents with the world. Imagine world peace. I say, what are we doing to work for peace today? I try and be kind. Kindness goes a long way. So what kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of country? What kind of province? What kind of city or place or home? And peace takes work. So I try and work for peace. And I wrote a little story called The Time for Peace Is Now in it. And it was a chapbook. So I don't know if you're familiar with little chapbooks, but it was illustrated by Kate Hodgson, and they have Happy Leopard chapbooks. And what they do is they pick a story from an author, and they make 100 handmade copies. And those handmade copies are sold for $20 each. So that's $2,000. And they give the donation for those handmade copies. They glue them and sew them all together to the charity that the author chooses. And so my peace book was for NASHI. The Time for Peace Is Now. And we raised $2,000 for NASHI. Now, what is NASHI? NASHI is an organization, Ukrainian organization. It was started in Saskatoon by Sevilla. And she went back to Ukraine and she saw that people were being human trafficked. And so it disturbed her. So they have that one Progi at a time video out. They have 2 of them actually, where they have a Progi Paradise fundraiser where they raise money and they support a house in Ukraine called the Maple Leaf House. And they have 14 girls in there, which they're committed to giving them an education all the way up to university or whatever they choose to do, and giving them skills so that those 14 girls will not be human trafficked. And so that's where why I choose NASHI, because it's a movement, it's an organization that tries to help people stop human trafficking. So a review. Jodi Picoult said, "You cannot edit a blank page. Just write. Think about what you want to explore in your writing, the purpose, whether it's for therapy, fun, message, to share, to publish, share or not. To grow as a writer, there's lots of resources. Just Google, you will find, and have fun. And as I said before, if you want to change your life, write a book." Okay, and this is another song I have. I'm not going to sing it for you. I'm just going to sing the first verse, but I had a Zoom launch. It's called Because. It's almost like a poem. And it goes, birds still sing in the treetops, the wind blows at night. I see special meaning in the dead of the night. There is a time to honor, there is a place to be, there is a depth to our living beyond you and me. So there's the song about Babas and Didos on their journey and thanking them for all their traditions. And Diakoyu, thanks. I asked myself, what am I doing today to promote peace? It's been a pleasure being here today with you. I'm Marion Mutala, and thank you very much for allowing me to share my story with you.